In the last week, you've had many university professors fired. You've had chairmen of the industrial presidents fired. You'd had journalists fired. Uh, they've claimed that Palestinians are human beings. That's considered anti-Semitic here. There have been more protests supporting Palestine, supporting Gaza in the United States than there have been supporting Israel. The universities have expelled the students from the universities. They say any claim that the Palestinians are human beings is anti-Semitic, and we will not permit anti-Semitism. These people are just as bad as the Russians are. So just as you have NATO and the Ukrainians calling the Russian speakers cockroaches and subhumans, you have the same word, cockroaches, being used by Netanyahu's officials towards the Palestinians. It's you have basically this kind of war here. Any journalist that is trying to say what you can find out by watching Judge Napolitano on Judging Freedom, the talk that he has every day with Colonel McGregor, with Alistair Crook, with McCarthy, the former CIA briefer of the president who's left, all the former CIA people that have said the American government has been taken over by people with dual citizenship. The attack on the liberty that I mentioned, when America would not criticize Israel, even when it killed Americans, was pushed by people with dual citizenship. When I worked with Herman Kahn at the Hudson Institute for 4 years in the 1970s, that even though he was a major advisor to the U.S. military and to NATO military, he'd said that his main loyalty was to Israel, not to any other country. The United States has sent from the Obama administration officials with dual citizenship, Israeli and Americans, to mediate between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, you can imagine there is no way that America can be viewed as an objective broker from the outside. This is why you're having China, Russia, and other countries saying, we are the only people who can intermediate because we don't have a vested interests except to make peace, because we know that the objective of war is to destroy the Middle East and its ability to export oil until such time as the United States can grab the oil again, as it is doing every day in Iraq, illegally stealing Iraqi oil. If America cannot do to the Mideast what it's done to Libya, Libya is the American ideal. It's the Christian ideal. And you have not only the neocon editors who control the major media in the United States, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and most of the television stations. You have a very one-sided side of the war. To look at the media in the United States, you think that Ukraine has been beating Russia for the last 2 years, and still you think Ukraine is beating Russia every single day. That's what's in the news. The reality is that Russia's essentially, the Ukrainians have all been mounting a charge of the last brigade. They've all been mounting suicidal attacks. They've emptied out their population. They've emptied out all of the NATO stocks. The NATO super weapons, the tanks, the missiles have not worked against Russia. And the reality is of Russia's total victory in Ukraine is you have just the opposite in the U.S. news. And if you try to write something telling what's actually happening, realistically, you're fired. That's why the Zionists at Harvard got Finkelstein. One of the best commentators on the Near Eastern situation has been Finkelstein. He was fired from DePaul University as a result of a campaign by Alan Dershowitz of the Harvard Law School, who's a passionate neocon, a passionate racist and pro-Zionist, who insisted that any university that tries to tell the truth about the military situation vis-a-vis Russia, the military situation in the Near East, what's happening to Palestinians, what's happening to the Ukrainians, has to be fired. There has to be total control. What you have today in America is just like the Inquisition from Europe and especially Spain that drove the Islamic Moors and the Jews out of Spain in 1492. You have a total authoritarian proto-fascist state in the West. And that's what is really confronting Eurasia and the global South. And that's just as what I wrote about in my book, The Destiny of Civilization. The choice is between socialism or barbarism. And the West is pushing for barbarism. That's its philosophy. That's its bank directive. That's its educational system. It's all barbarism. That's what it's hard for people to imagine that there can be such a death wish on the part of what they had for so many years thought was Western intellectual and scientific leadership. All of this has gone by the wayside. The West is no longer an intellectual or scientific or moral leader. The world is right now without any kind of leader. And they're probably the Eurasian philosophy outside of the West is not to have a single country being a leader at all. Not China running the world, not Russia and a new Soviet Union running the world. The idea is to restore what you had for almost all of recorded human history, a multi-ethnic, tolerant society outside, and to resist any attempt by one country to be intolerant and to have as its religion the fighting and declaring war on all the rest of the world. That's what Christianity was, war against all the rest of the world that required the extermination of any foreign culture, of any alternative. The Christian motto was best set by epitome of Christianity, Margaret Thatcher. There is no alternative. That's the Western motto on its flag, as it were. And the rest of the world, I think, can hardly believe what's happening here. The attempt is to trivialize it as a fight of settler families against Palestinian families, as if the Palestinians don't belong there. It's very much like in American Westerns, where the cowboys fought the Indians and ended up killing all the Indians and taking their land. That's exactly what the West is trying to do, not only in Israel, but in all of the Near East, in Libya, in Iraq. What's happening between Israel and Gaza is what's happening between America and Libya, between NATO and along with France and Germany and England, America, France, Germany, England, and NATO against Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, the Arab republics, and then moving moving eastward as much as possible. It's already trying to pry India away from the BRICS. You're having India throwing its support behind the United States and Pakistan applying for membership in the BRICS, saying we will replace India. India is trying to block the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, and Pakistan is offering itself as the more logical transportation line for the Belt and Road Initiative. And the question, of course, is, we've already talked about Argentina that wants to withdraw from the BRICS and not pay China any of the money that it owes China. And you have India that is implicitly withdrawing from the BRICS. So you're going to have a consolidation of the BRICS as recognizing a need to create its own banking system is an alternative to the International Monetary Fund. Its own international bank is an alternative to the World Bank that wants to privatize infrastructure instead of keeping it as a public utility. You need a new international criminal court to prosecute the war criminals. And you're going to need an alternative to the United Nations, or else at least move the United Nations out of New York.